Well, Australia's highest paid CEO has backed a plan revealed today by the Federal Labor Party to force listed companies to disclose CEO pay. Domino's Pizza Don May says that the coalition government should support comparison ratios of chief executives to the pay median employees receive.
The move follows some similar rules that have been introduced in the US and the UK, but Don May, which is why we're showing the pizzas, he says he wants the coalition to go even further and in fact require multinationals who operate here in Australia to also publish their own data. Let's bring in our panel for our Taking Stock segment tonight. This is our panel where we get two influential business leaders and dig into some of these big issues of the day. Bianca Hartshee-Hazelman is with us tonight, and Shane Oliver, who's AMP's chief economist. And you probably know both of these guys very well. Thank you to both of you. Bianca, first to you. Do you think this transparency push is a good idea?
I think it's needed. It's needed, and it's needed at this point in time. We've never before, potentially in our history, had such a push on gender diversity, inclusion. And when we look at the progress happening, we're making slow gains. But if we really want to make meaningful gains, then yes, we need to lay things out on the table. So I think it's a good idea.
But I mean, Don May, he's the highest paid CEO in the country, so presumably he's just sick of making headlines himself and wants to share it around a bit and maybe have some of the other CEOs get in on the action. I mean,
yeah. Well, he's got a point of contention here. He thinks his number is exaggerated.
Yes,
the
he
37
does.
million number.
He said it was 10% of what has been reported.
Yeah, his officially reported number is something like 4 or 5 million.
Yep.
And someone has estimated or guesstimated the 37 million, so he's got a point of contention around that, and I think he probably would prefer that the totality be exposed so he wouldn't have his number way up there and being overestimated.
Because he's just feeling ripped off, because he's like the $37 million man that's only worth $5 million.
And he thinks he's not getting that.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
But I think the broader point about forcing companies to explain why your CEO is getting so much is the key point here. Now, fair enough, you might be able to justify why someone's getting paid $37 million if they're creating many multiples of that in terms of benefits for their customers and shareholders and so on. But it's really about explaining that and getting out there in the public and having companies explain why they're paying so much. I think that would really shed a lot of light here and do a lot of good.
What do you think, Bianca?
Yeah, I agree with that. If we can substantiate why they're being paid that much. I mean, $36 million a year, though. I mean, that's a lot of pizza. I'm kind of wondering, really,
what's it doing?
How much? Honestly, I don't know how do you
can you explain that away?
How do you explain that? How do you explain that to the average delivery person?
Delivery guys on the bikes.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
that's the whole thing, isn't it? Because the ratio difference, the kind of the comparison here is what we're really talking about between what the people in the company who are making the pizzas pay and what the person at the top pays. So I suppose the question is, do you think that that can create a problem within the workforce and make workers unhappier than they probably already were?
And this is all politics of envy stuff too, which I don't know. Overall, it's kind of not necessarily a healthy vibe.
No, it's pretty much. It might make you also, from a consumer point of view, start to think, well, should I be tipping that extra delivery boy that little bit extra? You know, but Domino's is doing. You know, I buy Domino's pizzas. I enjoy the franchise. I've enjoyed watching it grow. Should I be jealous of that kind of success? No, I don't think so.
The issue is as well, I mean, the reason why we can easily talk about this at this point in time, Shane, is because, I mean, everyone else's wages are so stagnant, and this is part of the broader kind of feeling the pain issue that we've got going on, isn't it?
That's why it's an issue.
Yeah.
Average wages have been rising, or depending on how you measure it, 2.1% per annum. Very, very slow growth, historically low. And of course, CEO pay packets have been going up at a much faster rate. So that's where the annoyance is, and the risk is that it could disenfranchise your workers or lead to negative incentive effects.
Yeah, I see this because it's interesting, anytime I happen to tweet about Amazon, there's almost trolls on the internet that will tweet me back to point out the average pay of Jeff. If you write about Jeff Bezos, for example, they'll write back to you about the ratio between the lowest paid workers in Amazon and his pay. So this is something that we're seeing from overseas and kind of importing as well.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting call when Don May talks about. Will also tell us what some of the multinationals might do.
Well, he's getting a fraction. Don May is getting a fraction of what they're getting.
Yeah.
It also raises a broader issue of the superstar economy. If you're a pop singer, Taylor Swift say, come up with a great song, sell millions around the world, you clean up, you make billions. We don't seem to have a problem with that. But increasingly that's spreading. Because of technology, you come up for a great app to go on this, and you'll also clean up. Now, everyone loves those apps, but it is a contributor to rising levels of inequality. And I think in a capitalist economy, you always have to have inequality because it provides incentive for people to innovate and come up with new ideas. But you don't want it to go to too far an extreme because you might end up with a revolution by the masses. So you've got to find some balancing act.
I suppose it's interesting, isn't it? Because Taylor Swift is a business. Presumably, she's seen to be the CEO. It employs a lot of people. But as Shane says, in Australia, we don't want our CEOs to be paid too much money. I mean, what's your take on all that?
I just feel that we're at a point in time where this has come up because of the gender pay gap. We're talking about that increasingly so, and it's an opportune time to bring it up. So, and wages growth. Yeah, I just feel that transparency is needed. People want to know, well, if I'm getting this and my wages are doing nothing and my electricity bill's going through the roof and all these things are happening, making it harder for me at home, how do I justify paying, supporting this company? And I think that's what's going through people's minds.
Can I just say what's going through my mind right now? The Taylor Swift reference, because I listened to a podcast of you, Shane Oliver, and you are a very big Taylor Swift fan. You actually buy the CDs just to read the inside of the
I can't stand buying the electronic version because you can't see all that stuff.
Yeah, you actually read the whole thing.
I read the whole thing and I work out who wrote the songs and I try and connect it up with other artists. So you try and get into it.
If we ever want to do a Taylor Swift business segment, like Shane Oliver's actually our guy.
I'll be here for it. I stick my hand up, I shotgun doing that. I love Taylor Swift too.
But you know, the funny thing about this discussion is, then we've got this story today. We're kind of outraged that the CEO's got all this back. Then we've got this story today that the ATO says 200,000 people are going to miss out on tax refunds because they're just basically too lazy to work it out. It's like, here's some free money, and we're like, I haven't got time to deal with that. Are we just a lazy population?
Well, some of us are. I remember you know, you've got to insure your car for personal liability in New South Wales, and I think they provided a refund. They changed the rules, but you had to go online to get the refund, which was about $60. And I reckon a lot of Australians won't have done that by the deadline, which was September the 30th.
I think some people are afraid of not getting a refund. They're just kind of holding off as well. There's kind of like, please don't hit me with that hex debt or something like that. There's that kind of element. Well, I have to admit, it's a little bit my reason as well.
You've actually built a bit of a business out of this, haven't you, Bianca? Because this, you know, we do need to arm ourselves with more information and...
We do.
We need to get better at this stuff, basically.
We do. We need to know more about the deductions we can claim and to maximise those returns and to be more savvy. And it's so easy to lodge your tax if it's uncomplicated online these days. It's simple.
Does it finally work on Mac computers? I mean, honestly, until about a few years ago.
It does.
I think it does.
And I have to say the ATO helpline is incredibly helpful with this. There's a lot of different software you have to then download or use your Firefox browser and...
too lazy. Too lazy.
That's the reason. Maybe it's a bit too hard, a lot of these other things.
It actually ties into another thing, because I know this issue of us not taking agency in our finances is another interesting thing more broadly. Australians don't change banks very often, if at all, which is interesting because we learnt today that that CBA has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in Queensland alone last year boosting its Dollarmites program. Get them while they're young and they will continue. I mean, do you think that that's a bit grubby or is it okay?
I do, and what irks me is my daughter came home recently, and apparently when you're at this particular school, like other schools, you get a certificate. You're awarded, you get to go up on stage, you get this CBA Dollarmite certificate. So, Mummy, why don't I get a certificate from CBA? You know, so there's all those kind of parental things, right? Do I have to go get a Dollarmites account now as well to, you know, there's a lot of pressure there on schools and parents.
I must admit, I guess someone should defend it, so I'll have a go. And that is, when I got my first bank account, it was a Commonwealth bank account.
Me too.
And it was that little old bank
dragon?
building.
Mine was
there's the dragon. I think the dragon was St George.
Yeah, that's St George.
But prior to that, there was a tin building, which was an old Commonwealth bank building in Sydney somewhere, a model of it. And I put my money into it. And I kind of think that got me going in starting to save. So I sort of think that yes, there is a case for this sort of thing because it does help improve financial literacy and get it going at a young age.
Yeah.
You want to take advantage of the power of compound interest, you've got to start young.
I'm with you.
Yeah, now, where there is
I
potentially...
just outed Chris last night for having a piggy bank. He actually has a piggy bank.
I still do it. You probably still don't have a piggy bank, right? But, okay,
I have a coin thing in my car where I throw all the coins, and these days I give it to charity when I get it.
Good idea.
I used to buy the paper copy of the Fin Review, but then and the Australian, but then
no, you're a digital
I get the electronic version. But anyway, where I do have a problem with it is where, when I read the detail of the story, they pay a certain amount per number of students who actually sign up. So I think it's okay to fund this sort of program and let the other banks in all in as well.
Sure, go for it, yeah.
But I don't like the per student sign up. You get extra payment if you get more students to sign up.
And that's why I have issue with the awards in schools and your certificate. You're awarded, so more kids want to be part of that. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, you're getting a clip for every kind of feel good moment that you give. And I would argue, contrary to your point, that other banks and other lenders would also have their own savvy things for kids to save with. I've seen multiple different versions of kids' bank accounts that are fun that could probably do the same, maybe better. Digital apps that are available as well that can enhance that child financial literacy. So I'd like to see the competition open up a bit there.
Yeah, there's still fast food companies sponsoring tennis camps and tennis certificates. So it's kind of it's just that this broader kind of trust in the old trusted institutions, I guess, that is part of the bigger picture. We mentioned earlier, guys, the ACDC coin. I don't know if you caught wind of that.
I did see that.
I mean,
love that.
You probably like a Taylor Swift coin. You like it?
Well, if you know anything about Australian music, then ACDC are right up there.
Yeah.
The Harry Bandred, George Young songwriting team, who wrote a lot of the ACDC songs, and of course George Young's brothers, Angus and Malcolm, were key elements of ACDC. So I think this is a really great move. I reckon they're a fantastic band. I can't say I'm a hard rock sort of guy, but I did go and see ACDC back in November 2016 or 2015. I can't remember.
I was even at that concert.
Yeah, out at
whatever
it's called.
Kudos.
Kudos.
That's the one.
And that was a fantastic concert. I took my son to see that, and he'll look back and see he's actually seen AC/DC. Unfortunately, can't see them anymore because they stopped.
I think he needs the coin just to.
That's right.
Can you imagine me and Shane at the Akadaka concert? Are we picturing this? I was there. It was a great concert.
I'm loving it. What about you?
I love this idea. I love the idea of this lightning bolt going into the coin. That's really taking off, isn't it? I mean, that's now in water. They're selling water that way now. So I just find that really cool, and I want one.
Well, I want one too, and I think I'm going to try and collect them even. But unfortunately, we have to leave it there. Shane, Bianca, thank you so much for joining us on Taking Stock.